Our next speaker is Wendy Hardin. Wendy was born in Honolulu, Hawaii, and she finally found her way to Keller, Texas. She has grown children, one in the real world, and one studying now to join the world of computers. She loves speaking French. She loves sharing the French. Can't read that. She likes to swim, run, and lift weights. Please help me welcome Wendy Hardin. Yay, Wendy.
Who am I? Often when I looked in the mirror, I didn't see a face I recognized looking back. I didn't have a grandma face to look at to go, oh, I resemble her. Or yeah, Grandpa always does this just like I do. I didn't have that. What I had was unconditional love. I had Nancy and Jim who adopted me. When I was 5, Mom sat us down and said, we need to have a family meeting. Family meeting? Mom, can't we do it later? We're playing. No, she was serious. I remember those words as if she was sitting right next to me. You were chosen. You were wanted. You are loved. And today, as I look in the mirror, I do know my story. I was a love child. I was loved twice over. I was created by 2 people that I never met. It was probably a passionate night. They were both singers. They were artists. They loved deeply. I was the product of that love. I'm here today, living, breathing flesh because of a night of love. I didn't get to know them, but I had 2 parents that I did know, that loved me and always supported me, even when I wasn't perfect, which I always wanted to be. You see, I didn't even know I didn't know my own identity. How crazy is that? To not know what you're missing on? But I look back on my life, and in every stage I can see examples. I wanted status. We didn't have status, we had a station wagon. I wanted a red Mercedes-Benz with the top down. We didn't have a beautiful palace. We had a rancher, 3-bedroom, with a closed-in garage that Grandma lived in. No part of my life seemed to be in sync with who I felt inside, but I didn't know who I was. I looked to people to tell me who I was. I looked for clothes. I looked for sports. Every season came along and I had to sign up. I had to be the best. I wasn't the best. I put a whole lot of hustle and hard work into it. I was just always trying. There was journalism. I became the sports editor in high school. And even though she told me I could write, Vicki Perry said, I'm not going to let you quit. I wouldn't let you quit. If I didn't think you could write, I would let you quit. But still, I had writer's block. I looked to boys. I wanted a boyfriend so bad, but I was in a small town. Those boys were like my brothers. I wasn't going to date them. I had to wait to college. I was going to become the bride that was a virgin on her wedding night. Well, that didn't happen because I wanted to appease everybody and please everyone. Unfortunately, I was the epitome of looking for love in all the wrong places, the country and western tune. I was following in my mother's footsteps, and I didn't even know it. In college, I decided I needed an adventure. That would define who I was. So my friend Corinne said, you need to go to France. I was like, France? I don't have time to go to France. I've got to get my grades in and hurry up and graduate. Go to law school. Or maybe become a professor. I liked English a lot. Corinne said, no. Are you married? I was like, no, you know I'm not married. She goes, you have no excuse then. You need to go to France. I took her up on it. 3 days before my flight, she called me up and said, by the way, I don't really like roommates, but I'll help you find an apartment. I was terrified. I looked to my mom, Nancy. She was a woman of very few words. She hardly talked. She listened really well. We got along great. And she said, go. And I said, what? I can't go. She said, how many people do you know that have been to France? And I thought, Corinne. She goes, besides Corinne. I said, I don't know anybody. She goes, exactly. She goes, if you go over there and you don't find a place to live, the worst thing that you can say is that you had a vacation in France. I said, this is an expensive mistake, Mom. She goes, no, I think you should go. So I went on a jog, sorted my thoughts out, and I followed Mom's advice. I still didn't know who I was in France. I had a neighbor tell me before I left for the trip, this is an awful idea. Don't you know that their churches are like museums there? There are hardly any believers there. I just smiled. I was 18, turning 19. I said, perfect. I'll take my Bible and I'll tell people about Jesus. Now, I wasn't a Jesus freak. I had friends that were Jesus freaks. But I loved God. I talked to God. I felt like He loved me. I had accepted Jesus at 15 years old. I just wasn't submitting. I wasn't following Him. I was more like a fan. I thought He was great, but I thought chocolate cake was great too. I went to France, and one of the biggest memories I have from France was meeting, believe it or not, a guy that was not saved, from Italy. He was half Dutch, half Italian. He had dark hair, blue eyes, and was extremely fit. His name was Christian. And he was a constant friend, but he didn't know Jesus. His mom was sick with cancer. So I invited him to church. I did find a church that was active. It was a missionary church. Somebody handed me a tract in the park and invited me. I started inviting friends. I invited Christian. Christian did accept Jesus into his heart. Christian knew who he was. He was an Italian boy that loved women. And he wanted his mom to live and not die. He wanted her to be healed. And I said, why don't you come to church and we'll pray for your mom. I believe she can be healed. I believe in healing. Jesus heals today. He did come to church, and though I don't take the credit for it, it wasn't me. It was somebody at church that was more experienced. They were able to share, you know what? Jesus came to this earth for you. He gave his life to you, and he suffered and died on a cross. And all you have to do is believe that he came and that he loves you. Somewhere along the line, I graduated. I came home. I found out I had so many hours in French. It was obvious I was a French major. I finished that next semester, and I was ready to get married. That was my biggest dream, because I was so empty inside. I had Jesus, and he filled a lot of me. But on a social level, I looked around and saw couples everywhere. And more than that, I saw babies, and my biological clock was ticking fast. That summer, I sat next to my future husband. I thought it was going to be the answer to who I was. I was going to graduate, and I was also going to graduate with MRS degree. Humbly, I look back and I realize I had my priorities all wrong. And the thing that I lacked most was knowing that I was his, was knowing that just like Nancy and Jim had adopted me, a child without parents, Jesus had adopted me into his family. He had accepted me with all my flaws. All my needs for attention and affirmation were filled. In that one day when I accepted him at 15, I just wasn't living it. Eventually, I did marry the guy in my political science class. I thought it would be happily ever after. However, I'm going to bring you to the ending of that promise that I thought I was given. Hands shaking, I was on high alert. I was pressing 911 and hoping my husband would not come through that bedroom door. Kids were already in bed, and I wanted out. I wanted to escape this prison from the hell that I had chosen. I was a stay-at-home mom in a newly custom-built home, living on an acre lot, and I could not wait to leave. I really didn't know who I was. I thought I was strong and independent. However, 7 years with a monster drained my resolve. I was the center of his world, and he slowly dissolved my strength. He discouraged anything I wanted to do. My world became smaller and smaller. Eventually, I didn't even recognize myself. Who was I? I looked in the mirror. My smile faded. My friend group had disappeared. My focus was his. I became invisible. Well, I was invisible to everyone but him. He found so many reasons to hate me. He listed them all the time. He sang songs as he walked through our home about his perfection and my wickedness. I looked forward to Mondays when the work week started. Finally, my peace could return. It was really on day 3 of our marriage that I wanted out, except I had promised God and everyone in that church that I would love him forever. There were witnesses. I felt so bound to that promise. There was no way I could break a promise to a holy God. I had to keep trying. When we argued, I tried to stay calm inside. Eventually, I stopped arguing. There was no point. There was no winner. And I was so tired. His to-do list kept growing, just like his anger. The night before our expensive backroads touring trip in Yellowstone, he pegged me with a tent at the back of my head. I was furious. It hurt. I had tears. Game over. I give up. That's when I called 911. Not everyone has a fairy tale happy ending to their marriage. Mine wasn't even close. We weren't even friends when it started. He was part of filling an empty hole that would never get filled. I simply needed to look to my roots. I need to look to the God that gave me Jesus, that accepted me and said, all you have to do is believe, honey. You know, I didn't know that I needed a heavenly hug. I didn't know that I didn't have to follow a rule book. I thought the Bible was a rule book. That's what we learned in church. But I'm here to tell you today that if your life has any ounce of misery, it doesn't have to be a husband that treated you poorly. It doesn't have to be that you were looking for status. It can simply be that you know there's this echo of an emptiness in you. That emptiness is the Lord's whisper to let him wrap his arms around you and hug you and love you forever. He accepts us right where we are. That's it. I don't know how many minutes it was.
13.
13. Well, it's twice as long as I thought it would be.
Okay.
Do you want me to extend it?
Um,
Where can I extend?
okay, you can extend it by asking us if we'd like to receive Jesus and giving an invitation, and then telling us how Jesus made your life. He fulfilled your identity and made your life meaningful.
Is there anyone here that would like to open up to the possibilities that Jesus has for you? He came to this world to rescue it. He came to save you from yourselves. He came and saved me. Even though God created the world and Jesus was with him when it was created, Jesus came as a man. He looked like a man. He was a man. He was born, flesh and blood. He suffered just like we suffer today. So he has empathy for us. He understands us. He gets us. And he really just wants you to believe in him. It's not about going to church and checking off attendance on your calendar. It's not about a tithe, even though that becomes part of it as you grow. Your salvation with Jesus is really a gift. He came to this earth, he suffered, and man persecuted him. And likewise, he even promised us that our life would not be a bed of roses, that it would also suffer the same persecutions because he suffered. And that's part of our identity in him. And even though it's hard to describe, when you accept Jesus in your heart, you are in him and he is in you. You become laminated together. And so I know that me, as a single mom, I now have two beautiful, grown, healthy adults that are thriving. One's in corporate America and one's on his way to somewhere. He's about to graduate. And I just know, I know that a man, a car, a house, things are never going to satisfy my soul. But my salvation is always there to lean on. And the salvation is just me believing in him and growing in him, talking to him, connecting, reading in his word is an excellent way. When I was first saved, I could not wait to read my Bible. And I'm now to that level again. But there were many, many years where I had just enough time to memorize a verse on a card while I was ironing. And I'm ready to follow him fully. Yeah, Jesus, he accepts your flaws and he loves you throughout your journey. Please say yes to him today.